All right, thinkers, we have pushed ourselves as scholars. We now know that ACE is a strategy that can help us strengthen, develop, and show our thinking. So, no matter where we are, whether we're at school or at home, we want to be able to express our point of view clearly. We want to ace our responses by providing evidence to support our answer and elaborating thoughtfully. So, by the end of this lesson, I want you to be able to use a variety of sentence starters to ace a question. As you guys already know, ACE strategy can help us show our thinking. And again, it doesn't matter where we are, whether we're at home, in a classroom, and it doesn't matter what type of subject classroom we are in, we always want to ACE our responses by providing evidence and supporting our answers with thoughtful elaboration. Did you guys know that this is exactly what lawyers do? Lawyers take a position, they provide evidence, and then they convince people, called a jury, to see how their evidence proves their point. And if they're good at it, then they win their cases. This is exactly what I want you guys to think of yourselves as. You are lawyers. You're lawyers that want to know that there are multiple ways to prove your own point. So, like I said, today we're going to show you those different ways that you can ace your own response and be an effective lawyer. So let's review what we already know. We know that the A in ACE stands for answering the question. We know that the C stands for citing evidence, and we know that the E means to elaborate your thinking. And we know that we can use the sentence starter, I think, to answer, one reason to cite, and this is significant because to elaborate. As we gain more experience with using ACE, this means that we're going to need new strategies to practice. So, the rest of these lessons are going to be all about these new strategies that are going to help you. We're going to start with some strategies for sentence structures. Then we'll move into strategies for citing evidence, and finally, multiple strategies for elaborating. So, let's take a look at our three parts to an ACE structure. We know we have to answer the question, then we have to cite evidence, and then we have to elaborate our thinking. And by doing all three of these effectively, we have shown our thinking, we have shown our critical thinking skills, and we have effectively answered a question. We know that we can use the sentence starter, I think, for answering the question, one reason for citing evidence, and this is significant because for elaborating. But there are a lot more sentence starters that we can use. For example, to answer the question, we might also say, I believe, or people should, or people should not. When we're citing evidence, we might also use, for example, or in my school, or in my home, or even in my experience to give evidence. To elaborate our thinking, we can also say, this shows, or one effect of something is something else, or many people blank, but to show a difference. So, how am I going to do this? Well, as always, you need to read the question carefully. You need to pause and you need to think about what the question is really asking you. Then you get ready to ace your thinking by using a sentence starter from each column to form your three-part response. Remember, ACE responses are three parts. After you've aced your response, you're going to reread the question and read your response. Ask yourself, did I answer the question in a complete sentence? Did I provide evidence that supports my answer? And finally, did I elaborate my thinking? If you answered yes to all of these questions, then you have aced your response. If you answered no to any of them, you might want to go back and fix that using one of your sentence starters from the boxes provided. Now, here's a really important reason why I'm teaching you these different sentence starters. We don't want to be like a musician who performs the same old song every time in front of an audience. We want variety. So we must use different sentence starters to help us ace our responses, so we do not always sound the same. If we don't, just like our musician that plays the same song, people are eventually going to stop listening to or reading what we say and write. Let's take a look at an example. We have the question, what is one way we can help the environment? Now that I've read the question, I'm going to pause and I'm going to think about what this question is asking me. I think, well, there are many ways that I can help the environment. For example, I know that we could reduce our trash, we could recycle. I remember my teacher talking about composting once. And so I'm going to pick a sentence starter, and I think I'm going to pick the sentence starter, I believe, to add some variety to my answer. So I write, I believe that one way we can help the environment is to reduce trash by recycling more. Now remember, you're not done anymore. This is no longer an acceptable answer. You need to cite evidence and elaborate to fully ace a response. So, in order to cite evidence, I need to think, what do I already know about recycling and trash from my own life? You don't have to go out and do some long, extensive research project. Just look at your own life. Look at the examples that you have around you. Well, I know that it's my job to take out the trash every night. And I remember before we started recycling more, we had so much trash every single day. But once we started recycling, I wasn't taking out as much trash every day. So I use my life as an example. So I use the sentence starter, for example, and I write, for example, my family used to throw out a huge amount of trash each day, but since we started recycling, we have less trash. So there's my evidence, but it's still not a complete answer. I have to elaborate my thinking. I have to think, how does my evidence that I just gave prove that reducing trash helps our environment? Because that's the question. How can we help our environment? So, how does the fact that my family has less trash prove to be helpful to our environment? Well, I think of the word effect like a result. So, I use the sentence starter, one effect of, and I write, one effect of recycling would be less waste ending up in landfills and polluting our waters. Now, I am ready to put this all together for my full ACE response. So I have my full ACE response is I believe one way we can help the environment is to reduce trash by recycling more. For example, my family used to throw out a huge amount of trash each day, but since we started recycling, we have less trash. One effect of recycling would be less waste ending up in landfills and polluting our waters. So now that I've written my ACE response and I reread it, I can ask myself, did I answer the question in the complete sentence? Yes, I did. Did I select evidence that supports my thinking? Yes, I did. The fact that I have less trash since recycling does support that we can help the environment by recycling. And finally, did I elaborate on my thinking? Yes, I did. I wrote that the effect of recycling would be that more people would have less trash and therefore landfills wouldn't fill up. That's elaborating my thinking. Now let's have you give it a try. I want you to answer the question, what quality do you think is most important in a friend? I want you to use the sentence starter, I think, because that's what the question's asking you. What do you think? So go ahead and answer the question in a full sentence using the sentence starter, I think. Now, great. Well, I've answered it as well. Now, we probably have different answers, or maybe they're similar, but I wrote, I think the most important quality in a friend is trustworthiness. That is a full, complete sentence, but I'm not done. Now it's time to cite your evidence. Or what quality do you think is the most important in a friend? Use your own life. Use your examples of what you've seen in your life as your evidence. So use the sentence starter, for example, and write your evidence now. Great. So I've written evidence for mine. Remember that I wrote that the most important quality is trustworthiness. So I wrote, for example, if you tell your friend something you don't want others to know, you want to feel secure knowing that your secret is safe with your friend. Notice how my evidence correlates or goes perfectly with the idea of trustworthiness. But I'm still not done. I have to elaborate my thinking. I need to think, how does my evidence prove that trustworthiness is an important quality? I'm going to use the sentence starter. This is significant because I want you to do the same now. Great. I wrote, this is significant because friendships can end when one person becomes a victim of gossip. So I put this all together and I ask myself, did I answer the question in a full sentence? Did I cite evidence that supports my answer? And did I elaborate my thinking? If the answer is yes to all of these, then I've aced my response.